KKHT wants you to meet three of the classiest guys in real estate.
I am Chris Kelso, the maestro of mortgage.
I am Rob Cook, the godfather of real estate.
And I'm Joe Orsack, the king of credit swing. And together, we're the Real Estate Rat Pack. Much like us, real estate right now is smoking hot. So whether it's buying, selling, or owning, you need to check out the Real Estate Rat Pack.
They're here to take your calls and answer your questions live. Call now, 1-800-808-5548. And now, the Real Estate Rat Pack!
Good morning, good morning!
Good morning!
Wow.
Now, see, that's the way. You see, we have one of our guests goes right into it with us.
Shy, retiring Cindy Whiteside.
That is correct.
It's because you make me feel so welcome here. I just want to be a part of each and every.
You are a part
And
of it.
you're
Well, we
you're
practiced that on the
welcome
limo
here.
ride over here. So.
Yes. And that reminds me, we probably need to put a new plug out to our
We do.
new sponsor.
The Rat Pack is rolling in style now. We have a nice stretch limo to carry us around from Dimensions by Dan.
and
That is
they're taking
correct.
us to an event next week.
That is correct, on the
So-
10th.
This coming Thursday, right?
And then you are going to go get your tux, right?
I will have my tux on, and everything will be going.
Not the T-shirt.
Yeah, no, not the T-shirt, no.
T-shirt this time.
Yeah, even though I do have the T-shirt on right now, though.
There you go.
Oh,
Look at
yeah.
that. All of a sudden, Chris is stripping down in the studio. Just got PG up in here.
Exactly.
Yikes.
You know what's great is today we were talking about a subject matter that is absolutely hot. It's on everybody's mind. Everyone's talking about it. Everybody wants to talk about it. And that is appraisals. And Rob, we've
Yes.
got some great guests. We have three really good guests in the studio.
And people I've known for a good while. Jeff Hayes is, he's been serving on our MLS committee for like 20 out of the last 25 years.
Wow.
He's the one that goes through those analytics we get from Texas A&M. He knows his stuff. And we've got Ray Holzapfel, who I've probably known at least 12, 15 years. He is an appointee from the city of Houston to the Harris County Appraisal District. And, of course, the vivacious Cindy Whiteside, who is with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services,
Vivacious.
Anderson Properties.
This word was brought to you by the Houston Public Library.
So
We have to check that back in on Tuesday.
And, Cindy's kind of here because she had an appraisal issue this last week that actually was pretty large.
I think if anyone's in the business, you're going to have an appraisal issue.
Yeah, I don't
once
know
in
of
a while.
anyone who is actually doing business who hadn't had one in the last 2 or 3 years. So anyway, Cindy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always so fun to be with you guys.
Yes, we do know how to have fun, don't
Yes,
we?
you do.
That's what we tried to, at least.
And so kind of describe, you had an occurrence and you had a really large disparity between what the house actually went under contract for and what the appraisal came in.
That's correct. What happened?
No specifics, please. We're here to protect the innocent.
There we go. Ding, ding, ding. What happened was we had an appraisal. We agreed upon a price, and then we got into the process and had the appraisal, and there was a very large discrepancy. Well, my clients, they make the final decision, and their choice is they look at these professionals to give them a good money market picture of what's going on in the area. And so when the appraisal came in so low, of course, it was very frustrating to them.
And one of the things when something like that happens, what are some of the options that exist? I mean, from a lender's perspective and from a buyer's perspective, I think a lot of people who are listening out there want to, because everyone goes through it. Everyone has, some type of issue. What are some of the options that exist at those points?
I think one of the things that first you calm down and say, hey, let's talk about this.
Step one.
Just to calm down.
Calm down.
Yeah, that's the first thing. But then the next thing is we have options, and because it would not appraise, the seller would want, of course, to try and work through this normally. Sometimes there are sellers who are a little more hard-headed than others, and so they say no.
Some are more armed.
Yeah. Take it or leave it, which was kind of the case that happened to us. And so, but what it does, it opens options for my clients who are the buyers.
Right.
And the buyers, because the house did not appraise at the mortgage amount that they need, that would open up an option for them to say, no, we do not want this house. But the other thing that I think probably in this crazy market, which right now things are flying off the shelves faster than we know what to do with, that they would come to some agreement. But it unfortunately did not happen in this case.
Yeah, one of the things, and I've had conversations with Rob about this all the time, and it's, because obviously being in the mortgage business, we see appraisal issues come up, right? Some of them fly right through, other times, and at the end of the day, an appraiser is a third party opinion of value. It's a third-party opinion of value that a mortgage company has to use to determine, loan to value, qualification, etc. But the way the contracts are written up nowadays, there's two types. People get confused a lot of times. There is a financing option, right? And then the appraisal is actually separate now in the contracts.
As of 2011 that we changed it. It's credit approval for the buyer, and you have so many days that's negotiated as to when that approval is.
Right.
But then there's a little line in there that says must meet underwriter's guidelines. And that's the part when it doesn't appraise, it's no longer meeting the underwriter's guidelines, and therefore you can actually terminate a contract, the day before if that's when you got the appraisal.
Right.
And literally that's what happened with us.
Right.
There was just a very short time that we were going to close. We had a couple of issues left before we closed. And when the appraisal came in, it opened up that door for them and my clients, because the appraiser is the professional. And so you have to really, really figure it out and say, hey, do I want to accept what he's saying or do I want to go out on my own?
No, and I would absolutely agree right there. And a lot of times, as you mentioned, it's a matter of also, and this goes out to all sides, is remember, in today's market, it's all about being open to negotiation. I'm not saying that all appraisals are perfect, and I would mention even the appraiser would say, because sometimes there's comps that's not available out there.
Right.
And sometimes there are homes that might be valued at more if there are available comps.
There are basically four options when you
Right.
get to this point. Basically, you can come up with additional cash. In the case of Cindy's deal, it was a $50,000 disparity. So it's not many people are going to want to come up with $50,000 extra.
That's a big amount.
And then the second one is, of course, they can terminate the contract. Third one is that the seller can lower the price. And the fourth one is maybe they can negotiate and split the difference. They'll come up with, maybe they could have come up with $25,000 extra, and the seller came down $25,000. I mean, those are your basically your four options. Panicking is not one of the options.
Yeah, panicking is definitely not one of them. And one of the options we also have is we actually have a caller wanting to ask about a low appraisal, by the way.
Okay.
So we have Joe on the line. Joe, how are you doing?
Good. How are y'all?
Doing very well, thank you. I hear you got a question about an appraisal.
Yeah, I was trying to sell my house, and I had my house appraised, and it came in low, too. So I was wondering, what can I do to raise my appraisal? Is there anything I can do?
That's a good question, maybe for Cindy and for Jeff, maybe to task. Cindy, maybe his question is he has a home that he's selling, came in low on the appraised value, and wanted to know if there's anything he could do to possibly raise that.
And Jeff, you might want to go ahead and take that.
That is correct.
I think the options are pretty limited in that the appraiser is really working for the lender, and so they are. It's really a lender-driven problem in terms of the guidelines and the underwriting and so forth and so on. And I think that you can appeal from a standpoint of providing more information. If the appraiser is open-minded and has the time to spend on it, they may be able to consider the other information. I think one of the large issues now is that a lot of the appraisals for mortgage lending purposes are done by appraisal management companies, and they bring in appraisers that are good people in general, but they are paid a very low fee, and their time frame is very short, and that tends to limit their ability to spend time on the issue. I mean, ultimately, you can complain to the state if there's legitimate discrepancies in the appraisal as far as facts or other issues that might have had a problem. So it's a challenge, though, and in my experience, most appraisers really will not even listen to anything else, and you can provide them a lot of information, and they'll just say, I'm right.
You're not one of those, are you, Jeff?
Yeah. Sounds like politicians.
So how about from you, Cindy? Any ideas maybe other than what Jeff said?
I think one of the things that you can do is go and look at every good realtor will provide you with what I call mine a hate sheet, because you hate me when I give it to you, you love me when you sell your house for full price. And go through and make sure that your house is sound. And I think the best rule of thumb is, would you want to buy your house from you?
Right. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it right there. Joe, does that answer some of your questions right there?
Yeah, well, yeah, not really what I wanted to hear, but yeah.
Yeah,
we get that a lot.
Anytime an appraisal comes in low, trust me, it's not anything anybody wants to hear. I can tell you from a lender's perspective, because we do appraisals all the time, and we get appraisals that come in high, we get appraisals that come in low, we get appraisals that come in right on. And typically, as everyone's mentioning right here, the very first thing is number one, an appraisal is based upon comparable market or comparable homes in the vicinity, right? And so a lot of times, that's the number one factor. And Jeff wants to actually chime in now on this one. Hold on.
I think one of the big issues is that we're in a market right now that we really haven't seen since the late 70s, early 80s, where the prices are moving up at a rapid pace, and maybe 1% a month, maybe 2% a month. And the appraisers, if they were really reflecting the market, they would be adjusting for the fact that the property that sold 6 months ago would sell for 6% more. But if they make that adjustment, then they're going to have to spend some time validating it and answering underwriters' questions and so forth. And on the other end of the thing, from the lender's standpoint, there's so much liability if the appraisal is the problem down the road. And there's some large lawsuits right now between the Justice Department and the big banks where they're asking for $17 billion or $23 billion due to what they call defective appraisals. So everybody's kind of gun shy from that standpoint. And so it creates a real dilemma in the market, and that they're not really reflecting it. I would say if you're in a neighborhood that is definitely appreciating that houses are flying off the shelf, and that appraisal says that the normal marketing time is 90 to 120 days, that the market's in balance, and that there's the trend in prices is stable, then that will tell you right there that they're not reflecting the market.
What can they do about that then? Is there if they receive that kind of appraisal, then how do they handle that?
If they really have good information that the appraisal was not done properly and it wasn't credible, they can go to the Texas Real Estate Commission. The TALBC is the part that regulates the appraisers, and they can file a formal complaint.
Okay.
And the appraisal board will, or the appraisal commission will come out and ask to see the appraisals file, and they have a process where and that is something that I would encourage people to do, but you better have a good case, because if you don't, then it's really a waste of everybody's time.
Yeah, I would agree right there. And and Joe, one of the things that we see out there, again, is if you have a top home in your top of your neighborhood, there's two things we tell everybody. You can have the most precious home, right, and the top home in that neighborhood, but if everyone else around you doesn't have your quality of home, no matter what you do for it, you're not going to be able to get the value that you think you deserve in that.
There is a ceiling, and there's also those houses will bring him down.
That is correct.
And I would just wrap one other item that really people talk about. They want to know what the property's worth. They call an appraiser and they say, I want to know what it's worth. But worth is really in the eye of the beholder. And the seller thinks this, the buyer thinks this, the appraisal district thinks this, the insurance company thinks this. But what the appraiser is supposed to be doing is developing an opinion of the market value. And market value is something different than necessarily worth. And as an independent fee appraiser, I've handled a number of assignments in the last year where I didn't think the property was worth it, but I thought the market supported it. And so from that standpoint, the market value is higher. And it might be the reverse in another situation where I think, gosh, this is a great deal, but the market's only, it's only selling for this much. And so we're really talking about market value and not worth, because worth is an individual thing.
I was just going to say on that note that was a really good point that you brought up. But one thing that happened to me is I had listed up property that was the highest listed property in that price that had been in that subdivision for 2 years, because they had done so many upgrades on the house. We received 4 offers within the first 24 hours, but I wasn't sure if it was going to appraise or not. But when you have those kind of backups, Joe, that say, I have 4 offers that are full price or $20,000 more, that might help your arsenal. Right.
That is correct. Joe, we appreciate you calling. Any other questions or anything?
Well, just one other, since I've got all these experts online. If I went out and got it appraised myself, and that independent appraisal came in higher, would that affect anything?
Here's one of the things you're going to be up against on that is a lender cannot use a third party, cannot use an independent appraisal ordered by you. A lot of the rules that have come up in the appraisal industry nowadays say that we have to be independent, have to use, generally speaking, an AMC, internal AMC, external AMC, whatever it needs to be, but we cannot use an appraisal that you have ordered. We still have to order our own appraisal through our own services and our own relationships that we have in place.
And AMC is an appraisal management company.
And I would add one other thing that, as far as whoever engages the appraiser is the client, not the borrower, not the lender, not anybody, or the lender might be. But from a standpoint of if you get an appraisal, it's no way it's ever going to be used by that particular lender.
Joe, we are coming up against a break. We appreciate you calling in today, by the way.
Thank you all so much.
Likewise, thank you. For all those listening, we are talking appraisals. You can reach us at 800-808-5548. We're up against a break right now, but stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Arms around me, I get a fever that's so hard to bear. You give me fever.